It's good to actually talk with you and meet you. I mean, we've talked on the phone.
Yeah.
And I guess a brief story. This is Kevin Hopp. I'm Joel
Hey,
Martinez. This
how
is
we doing? Thanks for having me, Joel.
Of course. Founder of Calling Culture.
Yep.
And I don't know what I said on LinkedIn that got you to DM me, and we chatted on the phone. You were very generous. Like, hey, dude, call me. Because something about what I said in the DM maybe, I don't know, gave you alarm. Like, dude, you need to focus on calling and stop thinking small. That's what I took away from that. But I appreciate you being on the podcast, man. What's calling culture? Talk to me.
Yeah, great question. For those that don't follow me, haven't met me, aren't connected on LinkedIn, I'm one of a handful of extreme sales development geeks. I get very geeky and in the weeds on topics that most people kind of dread and move past as fast as they can in their sales career. Outbound sales, cold calling, process structure strategy, messaging development, all that is like my wheelhouse. So I recently launched a brand called Calling Culture, and the whole purpose, the whole design of what I'm trying to do is bring calling culture back to sales teams. So with the rise of AI and all these other tools, people think that sales development and getting new business is just going to be about how many automations you can put in place. At the end of the day, we all know that to make good salespeople, we need to have sales development people that actually develop skills. Now, the skills I'm talking about aren't knowing who to put into a sequence or when to click go on the email machine or the LinkedIn Autobot, right? I'm saying talking to strangers, conversating with people you don't know about what you do is really difficult. It's becoming a bit of a lost art in the age of AI and everything, and so far it's been received pretty well. It still is kind of like, calling culture makes a lot of sense to me, and I've done some testing and people don't really get it right away, but I want it to be something, it's designed to be something that an executive, someone who runs a sales team, has a sales team, has salespeople that are underneath them, goes, I want that in my team. Like, I need to develop that in my team. How do I do that? Come to me. Come talk to me. I'll talk to you all about it. So,
How many leaders or founders or managers do you run into that actually are like, we don't want to do cold calling? Is that the? Are they just not getting it? Like, why should we cold call? We can send thousands of emails or some other channel.
yeah, I'd say there are. Hold on, let me get my dog here. Hey,
Oh, you're good.
quiet. The neighborhood, dude. My neighborhood. I work in my garage. My garage door is open.
Nice.
90% of the year here in Southern California. I'm in San Diego, and one dog barks. 4 houses in each direction. Then he has to bark too. And then 3 houses down, another dog barks. It's like a whole thing. Everybody has dogs. It's frustrating.
Barking culture.
Barking culture. That's right. I should start a company called Barking Culture. Yeah, that'd be great. Cold calling thing, what's interesting is like I've had a number of deals, let's say, like when an executive, like a founder on one side of the house, it could be technical founder or it could be like the CEO, business founder or sales founder comes to me and says, hey, I think we need to do something like this. We need to test cold calling. We need to get a cold calling team together. We need to do something. And then I get into like these second or third level meetings where we need everyone to sign off, the CFO or whoever's in the co-founder. The co-founder can be very skeptical, right? Cold calling on, first look kind of feels really old-fashioned. And that's because it is, right? Like, it is. I'm not going to lie. Like, cold calling is very old school. And the golden age of cold calling is way behind us. The golden age of cold calling was from like 55 until about 1988. That was the golden age of cold calling. Why? No caller ID. Phones became ubiquitous. Everybody had a fucking phone. And guess what? They handed you books with everyone's phone number in it. Everywhere. It's called the yellow pages and the white pages. And they used to, you could just look it up and, every other call was a live connection to a human being. And if you didn't have their number, you could just ask the operator, put me in front of Joel. Holy cow, that was the golden age of cold calling. Like, let's be very clear. It's getting a lot harder. It's getting a lot harder. So the pushback I get first is normally like, cold calling's old school. We need AI and a modern approach. And I say, look, I totally agree. Like, you should be doing cold email. Like, you should be doing some of these AI things and, like, getting creative there. But the biggest reason why calling culture exists and, like, why what I do continues to sell is this fundamental problem of, okay, I need people on my team to have conversations with strangers. And if they only hide behind technology and asynchronous communication, which is like email and stuff like that, they don't actually ever learn how to have a conversation with a stranger. And that's really tough that you're not learning those fundamentals. So that and the other side of this is like, I am one of the premier experts on dialing technology, and I'm not represented by one vendor. So I have a very unique point of view on it. Like in LinkedIn, it's like the vendors are starting to dominate LinkedIn, and it's like, you don't have to go with X or Y or Z to be good at cold calling. I will tell you all about it, all the different platforms. I'm a signed partner for about 13 different platforms right now. So I know the pros and the cons, the differences, and they're not all for everybody. They're not all for nobody. Like, I think they all have their place and time. So I have a very unique point of view on that.
I see. And I do want to talk about that because I feel like what we're talking about, what we're doing, what you're doing, is the future of business relationships and employment. And I think there's going to be a lot more hired guns, mercenaries, and who are skill stacked, who are geeks, like you said, and know how to do everything front to back. And you've closed deals before, and so I do want to talk about that. But so you're not saying you should only be cold calling. You're saying, in addition to what you're doing, you also need to be cold calling. Is that right?
Yeah. So I mean, that's a really good clarifying point, because if you only go with one channel, unless you're in a market where that's the only channel that really works, and it's very, very few markets, right? Like, for instance, there is a market that I have sold into where phone worked so freaking well you didn't have to do anything else. That was when my first job out of college, I sold to realtors.
Oh yeah.
You want a real estate agent's phone number? It's everywhere.
Yes.
And guess what? They pick up their phone when it's a strange number calling. They pick up the phone every single time. Why? Because they're open for business. Call me. I'm your trusted neighborhood agent. And then you do the old switcheroo on the phone. Hey, look, I'm giving you a call. I know I'm not looking for a house, but I have something that can help you get more people looking for houses, or whatever it was, right?
Right.
That's a really good example. There are a few other examples of industries or places where one channel dominates others. A good example on the other side of the fence, on the other side of the spectrum here. If you sell primarily or only to government, cold calling is probably not your channel. Cold calling is, very, very few and far are you ever going to like have great success on cold calling to the point that you need systems and processes, right? Let me be very clear. If you're a salesperson listening to this, I'm not saying there's ever an excuse to not pick up the phone. If you have someone's phone number and the opportunity to either send them some long email or try to overcome an objection or whatever it is on email, and you've never spoken to them on the phone, pick up the phone and call them and talk to them, right? Like, that's considered a cold call too, right? So conversations with strangers, conversations with people that are not convinced, they're not coming to you, that's the biggest definition of cold calling, and I think it's applicable to any sales situation ever, because at the end of the day, people sell to people, right? We know this. But there's going to be another thing we're going to get to later. I promise you we'll get to it, is AI, and what role does AI really play in all this? Let's talk
about it now, because I think it's
Oh, you want to dive?
Continue what you're going to say, but we should talk about it now, because I'm curious what your thoughts are on this.
Okay, cool. To answer your question, we can put a bow on this one. You should be using multiple channels, right? Like, there's no real excuse to not have a strategy that you're trying and testing on email, a strategy that you're trying and testing on social, and a strategy for phone. Now, phone is arguably the hardest of all three, but gives you really fast results if you do it the right way. It's the fastest of all three, right?
Yes.
Why? Phone happens at the speed of when you want it to, as opposed to email where it's waiting on a response. and trying to land in an inbox and trying to, all these different things, technical challenges that get in the way. If you can figure out how to have live conversations with people, you're going to get the fastest answer, period, full stop. Like, doesn't get any faster than that. So,
yeah. Yeah, I know cold calling is, I forget who said this. I've just kind of taken this, but cold calling is like blue collar work. It's like it's a skilled trade at this point. It's so unsexy that I can see why people are like, I don't want to do that. I could just, in the same way you hire a plumber or something to come fix something that maybe is actually basic for somebody to do, a cold caller can come into your business and totally change things if they know what they're doing. And then on top of it, I think when I've had a few conversations recently where I was genuinely shocked at the mindset of cold calling and the lack of understanding of what it can do for a business, simply because they think of it as only pressing for a meeting right here and now, and that, we have product market fit, like as if the product, just because you have a product, people should buy it.
Yep.
And again, I'm not I don't have a product or not a founder, so I don't want to sound judgmental, but the fact of the matter is that's not always true. And so the mindset shift that I had is that instead of meeting getting, it's research, it's
it's conversation
testing,
having.
It's conversation having, exactly. And then it's like,
you can't guarantee the results of a conversation, right? And
right.
This is where, you and I have a kind of similar background here, but like I ran an outbound agency from 2020 to 2021, and I learned why not to guarantee meetings, right? And it's taken me, like, I've been in sales development very specifically for like 6 years, full-time independent, right? Ran an agency, I've worked with other consulting firms, I started a partnership business last year that blew up in my face in about 7 months. I've tried a bunch of entrepreneurial different stuff, but along the way I've seen some very, very bottom line truths come out of all this, which is like, the first one is nothing works all the time. Nothing works all the time, right? You can take the exact same sort of approach to a similar type of market that you had success with in the past, and it won't frickin' work, right? There's a lot of variables in all this. The next one is founders always, always, always overestimate how much people are going to love their stuff, how much people are going to like their product and want to buy it, want to see it, whatever, right? So anytime you talk to executives, it's always about dialing back that and reminding them, no one cares. No one cares. All of us out there are selfish. We're selfish people. It's a self-defense mechanism. It's an evolutionary trait that we have, that we are selfish. What can you do for me? Not what do you have for you, right? And that's where, that's the magic of sales. That's where good salespeople come in, is they say things, they phrase things, they deliver things in terms of the value for you, not me, right? So I'm very against using phrases like "I would love to" and best demo ever or whatever. Like whenever you talk about I'd love to show you a demo of our amazing solutions. We're in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, like shit like that. That I've heard many VPs of sales say, "Here's the pitch." And I'm like, that's a terrible pitch. I'd say no. I'd say I'm not interested, dude. I'm not buying right now. I don't need magic quad. What are you talking about? Magic quadrants in front of me, right? Yeah. So. Some of the consistent things that you see, right, that I've seen again and again and again. One of them is you can't guarantee that anything's going to work, right? Cold calling should be about conversations, and what comes from conversations? It's a freaking decision tree. Like there's 14 different things that can come from a conversation, and there's a lot of value in most of those things that come from it, right? People make all these grand plans about account-based marketing and account mapping and territory mapping and figuring it all out. And 98% of the time, you look at your list of client accounts you have to go get, and you say, well, I'd love to sell to Acme Corporation. Why aren't they coming to you? What are they doing today to solve the challenges that you solve? Right. When's their budget season? Who's the decision maker? These are all things you can find out through conversations, which the fastest way to have a conversation with someone is not email, it's phone. And people are shocked when we talk about exactly what you said, Joel, which is like the goal of cold calling should not just be sales meetings. It's information gathering, which we can then use to logically close for a meeting. right? If we're talking to the wrong people, if we're saying the wrong sorts of things, if we are talking to someone who just bought a solution, if we're talking to someone who's not going to be in budget for 11 more months, all these things that are not mine or yours fault as a sales development person get in the way of you setting a sales meeting. So sales meetings should be, it's a nice to have, not a need to have when it comes to cold calling. That's what I've always said.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
AI. Will you be using 11x?
No, not any of like the. I haven't heard good things. I've spoken to a few founders that have used fully autonomous SDRs, the SDR vendors that are popping up, and it hasn't been good. It's like an initial pop and then a really quick fizzle. So.
Yeah, I've gotten a few AI cold calls, and I've just sat through them. I do find it interesting. They're still very robotic. Although this notebook LM has recently dropped from Google. I don't know if you've seen this AI where you can put in a subject and there's basically two people talking as if it's a podcast. Sounds legitimate, you know. I just don't think we're that far off from the technology sounding, you know, actually human, right? Instead of a computer. I think most people are smarter than that. Like, I think they can hear it. You can see it in a picture. Even the most realistic AI picture, you're like, there's something about this that seems off. It's getting harder and harder to tell. And I'm not saying this is, you know, the AI cold calling is the future. That is definitely going to happen. I still think the future of sales is human. But I am curious on your take on AI and how to best use it. Because CROs, they've asked. I've talked with a few, you know, couple CROs, couple founders, where this is a lively topic in, you know,
yeah. I mean,
in
it's
the VC
the number
meetings
one
and
topic,
everything else.
dude. This is the number one topic in sales, for sure. In business, in all of this stuff, LinkedIn, whatever you want to call it, like the business sphere, AI is the hottest shit out there right now. So I got two broad takes, and they're about two different things, right? One's about sales development in general, and the other one is about cold calling in AI. So when it comes to sales development in AI, I believe that it's going to replace a ton of the jobs, like a lot of the jobs. And my argument is that's good. That sucks. It means less jobs of people doing kind of what we do, sales development. I think that's just a reality of it. Why is AI going to replace a lot of sales development jobs? Because a lot of sales development jobs are shitty. They're terrible. It's digging through a database to try and find some information that is outdated to then put together some crappy email to then send to them and wait for a response and not get a response and get frustrated and then start doing blast emails and then, you know, spamming and adding people on LinkedIn and pitch slapping them. That is like 60%, 70% of all SDR jobs. That's what they do all day. You pay a human ungodly amounts of money for this kind of work. So AI should replace all that, right? Like, at its very core, what is AI? It is finding, sorting, and making inferences on data in a very, very, very short period of time, right? So AI can interpret something, find it, and take action on it quicker, faster, better than a human can. Phenomenal. That's great. Like, automate all those jobs away. You want really good research done on the right types of people. You want double, triple check on the accuracy of data. You want really customized messages that are customized based on what you can see online on given all these factors. AI is going to do that really quickly and easily very soon. I don't think any of the vendors are like crushing it with that right now, but AI, the rate, if you listen to Ray Kurzweil or whatever, the guy who's on Joe Rogan, like, he talks about like the rate of innovation is up and to the right very, 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 very aggressively. It's an infinite scale at which AI innovates, right? And he thought we'd have AGI by 2030, and here it is in 2023 we got AGI. It's like, okay. So that's coming. Now, that's my take on sales development. It's coming for your job. If you're listening to this and your job is not actually talking to humans, AI should replace your job. I'm all for that, and you should be too, because you don't want a job like you have right now. Like, it's probably really shitty for you to go back and forth on email all the time and do all that, and, you know, you're just clicking buttons. Robots click buttons better than humans. They always will. Now, with cold calling, you do want a job that uses AI to make your cold calling easier and more effective. And I don't believe... I believe that there's going to be like this quick little hump that's going to pop up, which we're starting to see a little bit, which is like AI cold calling. You don't need a cold caller. We don't need a person to do this. We're just going to have Google's AI bot cold call Joel, and he'll set a meeting with him. Look, he'll do better than Johnny over here, who we pay $50,000 a year to. No, absolutely not. Right? Number one, there's going to be some quick wins on that. There's going to be someone who takes a faster AI and can actually get it sounding really close. There's going to be a massive AI bot bias in the market to where an actual VP or an actual someone that is busy is not going to set a meeting with an AI. And guess what? That little shred, that tiny shred of like, I feel bad hanging up on the sales rep. Dude, they're going to take their phone and they're going to throw it out of the skyscraper. There's going to be phones flying out of the Salesforce tower at 100 miles an hour when they hear an AI bot on the other end of the line. Because it's not a person. So they can be even more of an asshole to the AI than they are to the people. So your rate of who actually takes a cold call, is going to go way down, which is going to drive the amount of calls you need to make way up, and it's going to spam all the phone lines. Now, the second part of this take, which is really important, is the government has already ruled that most forms of AI robocalling are legal, right? And they got their shit together and did a bipartisan bill real quick because it was taking advantage when they launched, when OpenAI launched this first, talking bot. People threw a quick skin over it, and all of a sudden, guess who's calling your grandma? Donald fucking Trump's calling your grandma. Donald Trump's calling your grandma and saying, Stephanie, listen to me. Everyone says I'm the greatest. I need $20 to my campaign, and we're going to make America great again. And she goes, what? Oh, my God. Yeah, of course. Here's my credit card number. 124-555. It was fleecing people. It was crushing people. Joe Biden was making cold calls. Donald Trump was making cold calls. You name it. Big problem. So now that is illegal. Robocalling like that is illegal right now. Now, like I said, they're going to find ways around that. They're going to launch all these AI cold calling bots. There's going to be some quick success, and they're going to get shut down. I do not believe that the FCC will ever allow and be totally cool with completely autonomous cold calling right now.
I don't think we're far away from some kind of regulation that's going to, similar to email and text, same idea. There's going to be some kind of regulation around the corner whenever they catch up. I mean, I always feel like when government and tech, anytime one of these people in tech goes in front of Congress or something, it's like somebody from the future talking to somebody in a powdered wig. You say you have a Finsta. What's a Finsta? Can you confirm you have a Finsta? They have no idea what's going on.
Well, and, it was the reason that Congress got their shit together so fast to do this robocalling bill was because it went after them. They were the victims. Exactly. It was their contemporaries were the victims. Yeah. Right? So, it's coming. They are for sure going to legislate robo AI cold calling.
Yes. And in the broader sense, I think that people who are younger than us, if we're going to, this is very boomerish of me, but Gen Z.
Gen Z.
I think they are going to maybe not. I don't know if put a stop to it is really the thing, but they will be encouraging more human to human. I think people are just going to get tired of it on some level, and the real skill, going back to what you were saying, I think the new skill set is being able to collaborate with other people and learn new skills quickly. There's like an old anecdote about fishing. Every man used to fish for himself. He would go out in the water with his own hands and catch a fish, and then the net was invented. And now there was an abundance of fish, and now everybody didn't need to fish. So it's like, okay, of the 10 men who were going out and catching fish by hand, now only 2 are needed because they have this massive net, and they have enough fish to feed everybody. Okay, so what do all the other people do? It creates a surplus of fish. Well, This is like the beginning of cold calling. I have a surplus of a thing. You should take some off of my hands in exchange for some money. I think AI is going to do that in business with people. I mean, it does it for me. Like when I do these podcasts, I basically put it in an AI tool to chop it up and make edits. Obviously, I'm overseeing it. I'm not just letting the AI run amok on this thing that I'm trying to create.
Yeah.
But that's the new skill. It's not the soft skills are the new hard skills.
Yes.
I think. And so I'm very bullish on being, making friends, making connections, meeting other people. That's going to be the future of business as well, in that it's going to be like connectors more so than people who are closing for meetings. It's going to be high levels of value. You have a problem that I can't solve, but I know someone else who can. Yeah. And now you're building the networks and communities.
So, like the thesis statement there is like, AI is not going to replace all salespeople, but it's going to replace a lot, and that's probably okay. And those that are left over, your job's going to be the soft skills, 100% soft skills, actually dealing with people. Because I think sales development in particular is such a button-clicking, activity-based job, occupation, that it's going to be AI to the max. Now, an area of business that I cannot wait to be completely AI'd out is customer support.
Oh.
Customer support should be 100%, except for tier 5, the most technical of technical things. Everything else should be AI.
Say more about that. Like how would that look in the...
Because how many times I've called customer support for many different things. And I'm a homeowner, so I've done it for cable, I've done it for my internet, I've done it for my lawn care, whatever it is, right? I've done it for all these things that you call these big corporations, and you go through a giant phone tree and it's taken forever, and then you connect it to a live agent who's like, well, let me put you on hold, and they drop.
Yeah.
Oh shit, dude. Like, so frustrating. And the airlines, travel, like all these things where it's human error and the human ability to process what your problem is and spit out an answer is the problem, is like the issue. Now, there's two main issues here, like the way that I see it. The first issue is, right now, customer support is a combination of what? A knowledge base or a fucking community? Customer support communities are the worst thing on the entire planet, and they should all go die.
You heard it here first.
Look that up, dude. Customer support communities are the worst thing ever, because it's a bunch of people who don't know the answer talking to each other about what the answer could be. And it's like, I don't want a fucking community. I want an answer to my stuff. I don't want to know that Bob 2 years ago also had the port on his laptop not work, and 14 people said, yeah, me too. Right? So the number one problem, there's two things, right? I said there's two. Number one is that 98% of the knowledge and support is trapped in a static format, which is called a knowledge base. It's QA, right? It's like, if you're having trouble, do this, in the whole description. So there's all this written text that these corporations spend a lot of money on. I used to sell software that organizes stuff. They spend a lot of money on organizing their content. Their authoritative content on how to fix their shit, how to make it work, how to troubleshoot. Problem number one is it's all written. And problem number two is that people don't fucking read it. No one reads it.
Yeah.
No one likes to read it. Like geeks like to read it, and we'll get into it. And, developers have to use tech docs and stuff like that. But the average person just does not read the support articles that are in front of them. And it takes time, effort, and energy for them to read a whole support article, and then make an inference on what they just read as to how it relates to their problem. What did I say 5 minutes ago? What does AI do? It digests information and makes actual inferences on things. That's AGI. That's where we cross the line in terms of, okay, we've had search. We've had Google. You can Google something and pull up an article. But now we are getting a take on the article. You are getting an inference. You are getting a personalized response based on written content. That should all be fucking AI, dude.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And like I said, someone needs to be there, But like level 5, the one person sitting at the very top of the pyramid of, okay, you searched your answer and you didn't get it here, then you called in and the AI bot talked to you, and the AI bot has a little bit more information, and then the AI bot pushes you to another level, which is a specification. And if you still the 1.1% of people who call in who have an actual problem where something's really an anomaly, you talk to a live person. But right now, they employ these fucking call centers of hundreds of people.
Yeah.
That are all flawed, stupid, slow, dumb humans. Press the wrong button and hang up on you after you've been on for an hour. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yes.
It's just a terrible experience. Get rid of all of it.
This does remind me of when Amazon Go or whatever, Amazon Fresh, the store, where it's like you could just walk in and get your stuff without having to see a cashier.
Yeah.
When everybody found out that it was like thousands of Indians sitting in rooms watching you pick stuff up and zooming in to figure out what it is, that's how they're doing it. It's not this high-tech thing. It's people like sitting someplace offshore getting dollars a couple dollars an hour or dollars a day, even, who knows, watching you shop and then sending the bill. That's an interesting take. I haven't thought of that. I wonder if then also if the next step from that is a new tier of service, or maybe not service, but you buy a product, there's good, better, best, but then there's elite, where anytime you need help there's a human there for you as opposed to AI. Who knows?
That's an upsell. It makes sense. Before we leave AI, I want to drop this little bomb on you, okay?
Do it.
Here is the future of AI in sales. Now, I'm talking 10 to 20 years future.
Mm-hmm.
AI is going to sell to AI. Wait, what do you mean, Kevin? They're just robots. I mean, they can't just like AI to each other. There's no value there. What about relationship building? Right? I can just hear all the fucking people on LinkedIn saying that right now. The way that real AI works is an LLM, large language model, right? These customized models right now are cumbersome, difficult, and complicated to set up and manage. In 3 to 4 to 5 years' time, these companies are going to pop up, and what they do is they build internal LLMs. What is an internal LLM? It means at Calling Culture Incorporated, where I have 10 employees and we all do shit all day, we are now going to have our own self-contained, self-owned, self-governed LLM. Our own AI. What's it going to do? It's going to listen to all of our meetings. It's going to read all of our communications. It's going to understand all of our financial reports and everything about our company. It's going to plug into all of our customer data. And it's going to know all of our problems. And it's going to help us find solutions. Sometimes the solutions are going to be vendors. And so the job of the LLM is, once you train it and you bring it inside, and it's the Calling Culture or the Acme Incorporated LLM, once it gets to a certain point of knowledge, it can start to say, hey, this CRM doesn't really work. And you guys tried to integrate these 4 tools in the last 3 months. It didn't really work very well, and productivity is down, and output's down, and revenue's down. Let me go out and talk to other company LLMs, vendor LLMs, with a requirement list, and just communicate one-to-one. Hey, I'm with Acme. We need a CRM that does this, 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 and here's our tech stack, and here's this, and here's our rough budget. Too expensive. Another one. Not the right integrations. Oh, ding, 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 ding. Talk to a vendor that said, we can fit your specifications. We are within your budget range. Boom. Connects the humans automatically.
Oh, yeah. Sales is dead. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, come on. Joel, the way that I laid all that out, tell me where I'm wrong.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. I could see that.
There's hurdles.
I could see that
as
happening.
To why it doesn't work today, why it won't work tomorrow, why it probably won't be here next year. But at the rate at which AI tools are evolving, this AI for your company, the brain of your company, that's plugged into every piece of it, having more better knowledge about your problems and what you need, and then going and communicating, it's gonna take away sales development altogether.
I can see that
RFPs for everything.
I can definitely see that, especially for the large publicly traded companies who have responsibilities to their, to the people
Shareholders
who
and
have
people.
invested in them and shareholders and everything, and they need to make the best possible decisions. And I get from time to time people reaching out to me, a part of companies who do research, right? We're reaching out to you because you have experience in this area. We'll pay you $100 for 1 hour, which they never do.
Yeah.
But it's something like that. They're gathering research and they're selling the research to someone else. That's a very interesting take. I haven't thought about that.
I mean, it's coming, man. I think that would be the end of sales development, where we're already going to go from having, call it 100% of jobs. This last wave of 2023 being like the death year of sales development went down to here. AI,
Yeah.
those jobs aren't coming back. AI is going to bring it down here when the fucking LLM to LLM, when the AIs talk to each other.
Yeah. So are the symptoms that we're seeing now, like people talking about the channels are dying, are these the symptoms of, are these terminal? Is that the prognosis of sales?
Yeah,
Long,
I'd
slow
say
death?
I just don't. It's not getting better. It's not going backwards. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay. It's okay. Like the other take that like you gotta listen to if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, Kevin, you're doom and gloom. Like, shut up, dude. You gotta look back at history. You gotta understand that our civilization has gone through massive updates to what existed and what was going on. The Industrial Revolution, right? The Iron Age. These things have happened before, and it's not. Oh, well, fucking the steamboat took over and all of a sudden the dudes who paddled the oars, they all died. No, okay, you just figure out something else to do. Like,
Right.
business
Right.
will always be between people to people, so there's going to be new jobs. There's going to be new things that pop up that we don't even know in a few years'
Right.
time that'll make more sense for you to be involved in. Now, what's kind of cool here is the talking to strangers piece of sales development, which is like really hard. That's what I teach. That's what you and I are good at, right? Like, that part of it is going to be minimized. What's going to be maximized is you're going to have kids coming out of college, 23 years old, that actually get to have sales meetings because they
I
don't
see.
have to do the hard part. They just get a lot of people that are like, all right, cool, Johnny, tell me about this. And the focus is going to shift to how do people really sell to people. So I think what I do has a shelf life of, 10 years maybe in being very important.
Right.
Because it'll just shift. It'll have to shift to here's how you talk to sales, sales development, different things, right?
Right.
Sales is you are ready for this. We have a meeting scheduled. You understand why you're here. That's a different conversation than the cold stuff, and the cold stuff's really hard. But as cold
Right.
goes away, you're still going to need people to talk to people. There's people are not going to want to buy totally autonomously from a bot, and that
Right.
introduction is going to be made through AI.
Got it. Got it. I appreciate you sharing that. And this does segue into the skill stack conversation. And I wanted to talk to you about this because you were saying to me, bro, you just need to know more,
Yeah.
not just the cold calling, because as an independent operator, I will get lumped in with other people who are like on Upwork for hire for $10 an hour as a cold
Yep.
caller, whereas there are other things I should be tapping into. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, I think the same would go for kind of anyone who's listening who's in sales development. Your value is going to be tied to how you can become part of the bigger picture. The bigger picture is we need to drive more revenue. That's why people have sales, period, right? You don't have salespeople if everyone comes to you. I mean, you do, but you call it something else or something, right? But like if you need outbound salespeople, there is a equation, a problem to be solved at the board level of a company that the more you understand fundamentally that entire equation. Now the equation is how many people do I need? Where do I find them? Where do I pay them? How do I enable them? What technology do they need? Like what pieces of enablement do they need? And then technology, what do they need? What do we spend on technology? How do we manage the technology? How does that feed back into our overall sales strategy? And then what is a good performance expectation of them that is reasonable? And why is it reasonable? And how can we do better on that? Everyone always wants more for less, right? And in sales development, we have two levers to pull. Do more activity or do better. Figure out how to pull both at the same time, right? So if you're in sales development and you're really good at cold calling, like a guy like when I first met you and we were talking about this, like I'm like, dude, it's really cool to be a good cold caller. But it's kind of a point skill, right? Like it's 1 point out of that almost 10 thing list that I just talked about in terms of sales development and the value of what sales development brings to an organization. So if you're in sales development and you're listening to this, how can you go learn all those things and get better at them and start to understand? Oh, okay. It's not just that I can cold call, but I understand how to cold call at scale because I understand the math needed, because I understand the technology needed, and I understand who to go to for the technology, and I understand how the technology integrates. Now all of a sudden you have this full skill set stack, right? And that's my whole business model. Like that's what calling culture is me taking this expertise that I've gathered over the last 11 years and bringing it into an organization, and people are like, oh shit, cool, like I had no idea. I'm like, yeah, I'm a geek at this. Let me talk to you about the people, process, and technology that you need in order to get done what you need to get done. And that problem is always at the highest level. This is something that if it's a nice to have, you don't want to do business with those kind of people. There are organizations where sales development is a total nice to have, and they don't need it. And I feel sorry for my colleagues and compadres that I've seen get fired and laid off from jobs where I'm like, I don't know why you work there in the first place. It doesn't seem like sales development's a real driver for them at all. Yeah. Right? There are certain industries where ground and pound sales development really puts the dinner on the table. That's where you want to be. You want to try to understand that equation from every single angle. That makes you a very, very, very valuable person.
How can, let's say, there's an SDR that's listening to this, and they are, where do they start? What does that look like for them? Maybe they're just cold calling now. They just got started. They're a year or two in, and maybe they want to be an AE because that's what people do. But what advice would you give?
Yeah, I guess like the number one piece of advice I would give is work your tools, right? It sounds stupid, but it's one of the things that I constantly bring up is work the tools. What does that mean?
Yes.
It means like if I ask you like how does this part of Outreach or Sales Loft or whatever, Apollo, how does this work? And you can't answer, you don't understand how to use the tool, and you haven't tried it, you haven't experimented, you haven't worked that tool, then that's just you showing up and saying, hey, boss, what are we going to do today, boss? And that's not going to get you to that's not going to progress your career.
Yes.
Now, there's an element of this, I'll be honest, Joel. Like, you don't need to get super geeky on your knowledge of all this stuff if your goal is not to be in sales development. I think you need to get good enough to be dangerous if you want to get a promotion. But to get promoted, the soft skills are going to be actually more important than the technical skills. Like talking to customers and building relationships. Like that is much of I think building relationships is the number one platitude in sales development that is just a total fallacy. Like in sales development, it doesn't fucking matter. In sales, it does. It does. Having a Rolodex people that you have sold to before, that trust you, that you have brought through a sales process, having organizations, like having like a win sheet of like I sold to Pepsi, I sold to this, I sold to McDonald's. Like that is relationship-based selling that will get you very far. And I know many people that make $250,000 to $500,000 a year every year just because they have a Rolodex and they took time to build it up. So there's a lot of value in that. But you don't need to be a total sales development geek to get to that point.
I would say that the geekiness should go as far as, yes, you should know your tools, absolutely.
Yeah.
You should use them, and you should be a star at documenting your activities, and here's why. And I've never managed a team before, and I always had managers say, make sure you're using the CRM, make sure you put your stuff in there, and I didn't do it. Sorry. But it was always couched in the idea of this is going to this helps the company, or let's say you leave and somebody else comes in, and it's like, this is not a great, I get that it's my job, so sorry guys, all the managers who might be watching this, my bad. But for me, it only clicked recently where I was like, I should have been documenting so that I could then monetize my knowledge down the road. Like, and I could take this with me as a skill set that I talk about, like not just your resume, but actually say, these are the steps that I did in my process for this field. And it was all just because I didn't have enough foresight to say, like, okay, maybe there's a way to, I don't know, create a course, or when I go to the next company and have this conversation, it doesn't just say familiar with Salesforce or yes, I use Excel. It's like, no, here are some examples of things that I have done, and this is how I use it and how other people aren't using it and how it got me to the next deal. Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree. We should give a little segment here for if you want to become a sole proprietor and go out and be a consultant and work for yourself. I've been working for myself for about 7 years. I don't know if I'll ever go full-time anywhere, not at least without being a co-founder. I'm open to co-founding something, but I'll never be an employee again. That's what I'm pretty certain of. If you have interest in that, I have one statement for you, and I want you to really try to take this to heart, okay? The bar is very, very fucking low. The bar is low.
Yeah.
The bar is low out there.
Crazy.
What do I mean by that? I mean, most people that call themselves consultants or whatever they are, they only really know, right? Like, you don't need to know everything. Like, when I had a mentor introduce me to being a consultant years ago, 7 years ago, he's like, you should just go be a consultant. I'm like, dude, I've only been in the working world for 5 years. I don't know enough. And he's like, dude, you know this. And if you are the king of this, you can make a shitload of money. And I tripled my income the next year. Tripled. I was like, mind blown. Because the bar is low. Like, you don't have to be, I always thought that I had to be like a CRO with multiple exits and then I could be a consultant. It's not true. You just need to be the king of your castle, the king of your domain, and really know, and be able to put, it's a little bit like the other statement here is like, be Babe Ruth. If you can be Babe Ruth and walk up to the plate and call your shot and hit the shot, that's what consultants are called on to do. 100%. That's it.
It's free game right there.
Be able to walk in there and say, I can do this in business and go deliver on that. Boom. Mm-hmm. If you can do that, you can then charge a lot of money for it. Because guess what? Most people in their jobs are not there to do stuff. They're there to get by. They're there to not get fired. So the difference between an employee and a consultant is a consultant has to show up and deliver and do what they say they're going to do, and then they're out. And you're not going to grow a lot of business if you just show up, say you can do something, and then have it flop. Like, I know a bunch of LinkedIn influencers who've gotten hired by people, and then they say, dude, we hired this guy, and he was a total idiot and didn't know. He sold us on the idea and then came in and had no idea. And I'm like, it happens, right? Do you want to hire someone who's popular or someone who's technically sharp? You got to be careful when you vet people. That being said, the bar is low. Become Babe Ruth. Figure out what's the one or two things. One thing in business that you can call your shot and hit your shot every time.
That's awesome. Question. That is awesome. So I wonder actually why more, especially small shops, early stage places don't go for a third party person as opposed to an employee. Like, you could really, one, you save money. Two, you don't have to worry about HR. There's no insurance or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I wish they would do it more, or maybe I'm not meeting them. If you need help in some of these areas, Kevin's your man. I can help you as well, but this show is about Kevin right now, so and calling culture. But no, you're absolutely right. That is the bar is low. I think I saw on Twitter yesterday. What did the person say? If you're just willing to show up, maybe go to the office 2 or 3 days a week, and just really try your best, you'll do well. You'll get promoted, and I mean, I guess it's unfortunate. It does seem like a waste of money for the company itself, but for that person who's listening to this right now, like, just put in a little extra effort. Don't just try to survive at your job. Like, do 10% more than the person next to you, and you can write your own ticket. And then, as far as going solo, like you're saying, I'm 100% with you. Being employed again would be difficult, unless it's the right circumstances, right? You're a founder, or you have the culture is that you can be flexible, right? Because the big companies, they don't, as many good ideas as you might have, they have other interests, and on some level the company itself is going in a direction that you might not be going as well. So well said on going
what I'd
solo.
add to that is, if your job is sales, if we're talking about like how do you do well at a sales job, it's just a puzzle, and you have to figure out how to solve it. And that the puzzle is you have to hit your quota. Sales is different than other jobs where your value is like, I love the energy she brings to the room when we talk about how to innovate on customer solutions. Like, I'm sure there are other jobs in companies where people, like, you don't have to go out there and put your ego on the line all the time and ask for money from strangers. In sales, you do. So the piece of advice I give, if you want to get good at your sales job, you just need to figure out how to hit your quota. And not everybody does it the same way. Like, you don't have, like, here's the shocker that I've told on many podcasts, but people usually kind of get shocked at this one. So, Kevin, calling culture Kevin, hop on calls Kevin, Mr. Cold Calling guy, when I was an SDR, I crushed it and hit my quota every month for 5 months in a row after my first month. And I did it by only cold calling about 20% of the time. I got most of my meetings scheduled through not cold calls, because I was creative. I was very creative, and I could map things out in my head and say, okay, cool, I talked to him on the phone and he said I need to talk to her on LinkedIn, and she said that he's the guy, and they both said something about the organization that I'm going to use in this email to Bob, and Bob took a meeting. Like, it was the ability to just put the pieces together and be creative. I used Twitter, I used LinkedIn, I used the phone, I used email. I followed up like a banshee on all inbound leads and everything that was like a webinar and stuff like that. That's how I blew my quota out. It wasn't just by being a telemarketer.
Boom.
So if you're in sales and you want to get far in your career, you have to hit your quota. It's a non-negotiable. You have to hit your quota. And figure out how to do it. Go figure it out. There's a way to do it. Unless you're working for an early stage startup, in which case you very, very likely you have an unreachable quota, and just do your best. But Joel, do we want to go down this road? Do we want to talk about how, like, startups are not employers? They're not designed to be employers. This is a take that I have.
You already broke it open. Let's go.
Oh shit! All right,
talk about it.
Dude, we've been talking for like 53 minutes. No one's listening. But if you are listening, listen to what I have to say about this, because this comes.
I'm dropping this. Don't worry.
This comes from about 11 years of experience in mostly very small companies. I've been a 5-time first hire. 5 times first hire, where I'm not the founder. I'm just the guy who does all the fucking work, because I'm the first employee. 5 times. Startups are not designed. They're not created to be employers. Well, hold on, Kevin. Hold on. Every startup I know has employees, and they value their employees. Look at their review score. Look at Glassdoor. They love their employees. Okay, startups, venture-backed startups in particular, every new company is not designed to be an employer right away. They're just still trying to figure out if they're even a viable company. And when I figured this out, my brain fucking blew apart, right? Which, the concept of, okay, I got hired here. They said they're going to pay me a salary. They said all this. I mean, all these grand promises of everything, right? And then they tell me a year later, we're closing the business, or we're pivoting the business dramatically. I'm like, wait. I thought you had this figured out. My role as the employee is to do what I'm told, and your role as the owner of the company is to have a company. Have the company fucking float and create cash. Well, in startups are generally, venture-backed startups are created for one purpose. And that is for the people who own equity in the startups to get filthy fucking rich. Sounds cynical. Tell me I'm wrong with a structured argument. I am right. If you work at a venture-backed tech company, you need to understand that the equity holders of your company, which is the founders and those who invested and bought equity or earned equity other ways, are the only people that really matter at any given time. And those founders, especially if they took a lot of VC money, are beholden to these other people who own parts of their company to do the right thing, not for you, not for the employees, not for all the promises they made to people, to do the right thing for the equity, for the company, for the value of the company. And if that means liquidating 60% of the company, they fucking do it all the time. Like I saw yesterday, the company that very popular on LinkedIn laid off 40% of their staff, right? They will do shit like that anytime because they're not designed to be employers. They're designed to be equity vehicles, equity acceleration vehicles. Like, that's why venture capital works. That's why,
right.
You know, 'cause for every 98 companies they invest in, one of them's going to be Uber. And Uber took that venture capital money and went like this through the roof, right? And then for putting in their $100,000 here, they got $100 million back. That's what they want. But that's the purpose of these companies. So if you're at a Series A, C, B, C, D, if Series anything startup, just understand it's not necessarily even your boss's fault that you have a shitty job where you can get terminated at any moment. It's the game you're playing. And no one says the quiet part out loud. And the quiet part is startups are not employers. They are equity acceleration vehicles, and they are designed to make the owners very rich in a very short period of time. And if anything gets in the way of that, it will get neutralized. It will get crossed out. It will get eliminated. And that's people, that's tech, that's offices, that is benefits, all of that. It is.
Bro.
So, yeah.
When I was a DJ, I would play this sound if I put on a banger, the horn. I'm going to actually introduce that. Yeah, seriously, because what you're saying is actually, this is a basic economics fact that businesses are not in place. All businesses, this is true of all businesses, they only have employees if they need them.
Yes.
They're not there for the sake of having employees.
Agreed.
And it's not even something that gets taught in school anymore unless you are specifically studying economics. Businesses are not there for the employee. They are there for the shareholder. They're there for the equity, like you said, and the profit.
Yes. But so it's important to add, well, Kevin, what should I do then? What's going on? Look, just understand that is the dynamic that you're in if you happen to work at a venture-backed startup. Okay? If that scares the fuck out of you, you have two choices. Go independent, like me and Joel here, where we work for venture-backed tech companies, but we do this, and I don't care if that company goes under because they're check cleared. Whatever, I'm out. Or go work for a bigger company. There are these big companies that have been around for a long period of time where they absolutely need people, to your point. Now, is there any company that is recession-proof or layoff-proof? Absolutely not. Okay, economic cycles affect pretty much every company all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. And if that really scares you, too, and you're like, well, I don't want to go work at Dell and get laid off in a 5% riff, then, dude, you got to go become an accountant or a lawyer or something where you open up your own business. But then you're going to see it, too. Market cycles do this, man, every 15 to 20 years, no matter what anyone does. So there is no great answer, but when I figured that out about startups, I stopped taking it so personally, and I started being a lot more critical of who I was trusting with my employment. Mm-hmm. And that was a big shift I made, and that would be the big takeaway. If you're a person who works at a startup and was like, well, Kevin, I kind of thought that what they said in onboarding was true. We're a family here. We're a family here at Acme. We just raised a $40 million Series C. Like, the more venture capital they raise, by the way, the more people are telling them what to do. So it's really bad. You don't want to work for someone who raises a shitload of venture capital.
Ooh.
That's a rule of thumb.
Free game. I'm going to change this one to the free game podcast.
Yeah, shoot. All right. Let's talk about something good to end the podcast. What's something good?
I thought that was very good. Actually, I only had one more question for you.
Yeah.
And it is, is there something that you wish more people asks you about?
Something that I wish more people asked me about.
Yeah, is there a question that you wish more people asked you? Maybe let me rephrase that. Hat tip, Townsend Wardlaw.
Townsend Wardlaw is a fascinating guy.
Yeah.
I think I think too many people think that like this LinkedIn stuff and business stuff is like really important. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I wish we had more conversations openly about what is really important, and then like what that means in the broader scope of like, if you are a young person and you're on LinkedIn, because we met on LinkedIn, your audience is on LinkedIn. We're talking about we gotta put this in the context of LinkedIn. Like, I wish there was an element of LinkedIn that was like, hey, just so we all are clear, none of this fucking matters. Okay? Like, take off that Friday to go to the funeral. Take off that Monday to take your wife to surgery. Take off that whole week to go to Disneyland with your kids. Take off, like, do not let this overall importance of what you think is cool, because LinkedIn and, you know, hustle culture and bro shit like that, like,
Mm-hmm.
do not spend more time on your laptop than you do with your family. Like, it just doesn't fucking matter, dude. It doesn't. The
Right.
only thing that matters should be the multiplication of, like, love and good feelings in your life. You know what I mean? And what's getting in the way of that? Well, addiction. Well, I have bad eating habits. Well, my job. The amount of time I spend on LinkedIn thinking about content or doing something. Like, that's why I, like, left LinkedIn for about a year and a half. Because I started to just say, like, this is affecting my mental health. And I'm losing sight, taking my eye off the ball. None of this shit fucking matters. Cold calling doesn't matter. Business doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What does matter is, am I being a good husband, father, friend? Like, are you being a good person? We don't talk about that enough. No one talks about, like, how to be better at the things that matter in life versus the shit that happens on LinkedIn, of all places. LinkedIn sucks.
Dude, I'm 100% with you. Like, this is all a means to be with the family more, right?
That's the idea.
Like going independent so that you could do less work in some degree, you know, to some degree, for a better return, so that I can be with my family. I have 3 sons, and there's things we want to do. We want to, you know, buy a house. We want to do activities. We want to have options. Want to buy another house. Want to take care of mom. Take care of my mother-in-law. And just be, because there's nobody else in my family, you know, sorry, love my sisters, but they're just not, nobody else is like overly ambitious and like trying to think of ways to max out their income
Potential.
so that they can affect the people around them. And that's another part of the, you know, the Rizz Dev mindset community that I'm going for. It's just, I want to be around more people like you who are thinking about these things and are willing to share what the truth is about business and your life and what's important and what's not. You're 100% right. I'm with you.
Amen, brother. Well, Joel, thanks for having me on the podcast, dude.
Thank you.
This is awesome.
Is great.
I hope this is valuable.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I hope you'll come back again and we can talk some more. We can talk some more shit.
Anytime. Let's keep in touch.
All right, man. Rizz Dev.
Rizz Dev?